So there is nothing particularly interesting about my life going on right now. So I figured I could try to do my next topic. So the topic I wanted to talk about today is marriage and kids. So for marriage was never something that I really saw myself focusing on much. I don't even know if this is something that girls actually do. I feel like it's just like a stereotype or something where, you know how there's that thing where they say how girls fantasize about their wedding dress, about their wedding when they're little girls, or that they like pretend that they have a veil on with a pillowcase. Like, I don't know where I've heard that before. Maybe that's just movies, but I feel like that's just something you hear from time to time that girls do, that they fantasize about something like that. But I never ever fantasized about something like that. At most, as a kid, instead of putting like a pillowcase on my head, I wore my underwear on my head, and my mom was not happy about that because she thought that was really dirty. But I only did that with clean underwear. I would just put clean underwear on my head like a hat. Yeah, it was not something I ever cared that much about. And I think after a while, when I met my third boyfriend, he was someone who seemed very strongly against marriage because he went through a divorce with his parents. And after that happened, I think it affected him a lot. I just remember him telling me that he would never want to get married. So I think when I was with him, that kind of made me think a lot. And maybe while I was with him, his views may have affected me because I was young, right? And whenever you date someone when you're young, you think it's forever. So then you feel like, oh, if he feels this way, then I should feel this way too. So I think maybe at the time, that's the way I handled it, but our relationship wasn't really a good one. So I think I was really just impressionable then. But even now though, after that relationship and all the time that has passed, I still do think that I don't care very much for marriage. I would be happy being long-term partners with someone. I should probably do my research, but I don't know about all the different things you get when you get married, but at most, I think there are tax benefits. Other things that I can randomly think about is, if someone's in the hospital, you know how they say family only? And family tends to include husband and wife, not partners. So I think in those situations, it would suck, and that's really fucking stupid though, I think, because it's just a piece of paper. That is also stuff that I am not positive about. So I can say that now, but maybe it's not actually a reason that matters. Being married doesn't necessarily place you on a different status than if you were just, long-term partners and seeing each other. I kind of view relationships all generally in the same way, where even if you are married, I don't feel like anything should really change. I kind of oftentimes think that people view marriage as like an obligation because people are so used to hearing about it and thinking that it is a natural next step in relationships. So they do it just to go along with it. And I feel like a lot of these people don't tend to think for themselves when they get married. If you really want to get married and you do it for that reason, that's perfectly fine. But I feel like a lot of people tend to do it because they are just part of the system. They just think that if you're in a relationship after X period of time, you have to get married. You have to have kids. So that's one thing that I tend to be really off-put by, which is how it does feel like a lot of people are incapable of thinking for themselves. Whenever my parents would talk to me about boyfriends and relationships, they would kind of talk about it where, oh, the next person you meet, try to make sure there's someone that you could see yourself being married to, or they would talk about it in like a husband way. But I just don't see it differently at all. I feel like even if they were a short-term partner to me, I would still generally want similar qualities in my husband, except it just really depends on what my goal is, because sometimes for short-term partners, people really just like want to mess around. They don't really care about longevity. So in that case, yeah, you don't really focus on their qualities all that much. But if it was a relationship, any form of relationship for me, I would still want all of the qualities that I prefer, regardless of whether I'm viewing them as a potential husband or not. It feels kind of sad to say this because this is an aspect of Asian culture I'm not really a fan of. People often know how Asian culture, the parents tend to really pressure you to get married by a certain age or something, or they care a lot about you having a relationship and possibly getting married. So my parents have always been generally hands-off on relationships, which really surprised me because anytime I dated someone, I felt like they would be more open to talking to me about it, because I'm sure for some of them they didn't like the guy, but they never told me really, or I think they just knew that with my personality, them saying that they don't like it or that they disapprove wouldn't mean anything, because it kind of wouldn't. I've never been that type of person who takes what they say very seriously if it is against what I believe in, because you're your own person. I'm not really that easily persuaded by a parent just because it's my parent. I've never been someone who really takes family that seriously, and maybe that will be another topic. But yeah, generally, like, even if they tell me something, if it's not something that I feel strongly towards, will kind of make their words a little bit meaningless when they tell me. So right now I'm almost 27, and they actually haven't really mentioned anything about that stuff too much, which is good, because that would really piss me off, because I feel like when parents tend to do that, they kind of do that in a way where it's similar to, I just really don't like it when someone keeps doing something after you tell them you don't like it. And my parents have been notorious for that in the past. Like, just growing up, simple things like them offering you some food, and if you say no, they keep trying like 3 to 4 times after. And I just hate that so much. It's like, if you say no one time, you should accept it. You shouldn't keep asking and trying to force it on someone. So something like that, they do from time to time when we talk on the phone. They do ask me if I randomly have a new guy or a new relationship. And I guess sometimes I find it so weird that they ask me that, because I feel like they should know me well enough to just expect me to have nobody. But on the other hand, I do kind of understand how a guy can just surface out of nowhere. Like, I could just meet a guy randomly, and if I do, I wouldn't really just voluntarily tell them something like that. So them choosing to ask me probably is something that makes sense, because the frequency at which they ask me, like maybe every other month or every few months, seems like it's way too often, and that they should always expect me to have the same answer. But I guess I am glad that they don't really pressure me in any way, because I hate that aspect so much. There is no reason somebody should be married by a certain age. Sometimes when you hear about like parents trying to play matchmaker, trying to set you up on dates and stuff, no way. I think even now I have managed to have a pretty positive outlook on being alone, because a lot of people, I think, fear dying alone, and maybe I'm too young to understand or value companionship, but I don't feel like that's something that would worry me. A lot of my current goals right now are geared towards me expecting to be alone for a very long time. So none of that really worries me. In fact, I'm actually really eager to try to obtain those things. I never approach them with the idea that I will have somebody to take with me. That sounds like such a stupid way to phrase it, but just basically like having someone with me that I'm with and that will want to have an input regarding house, location, stuff like that. I think overall though, I wouldn't care to be married, but if whoever I was dating really wanted it, then I would definitely consider it. Another thing though is that I would really hope that whoever I'm with would agree to not do a ceremony or anything like that. For that, I do kind of feel a little bad, because during graduation from college, I didn't go. And I feel like at times it kind of robbed my parents of that opportunity. But I just hate those ceremonies so much. Something like graduation, it's just like you're sitting there, it takes hours, and honestly, I think at that time, I didn't particularly feel proud about graduating college because I hated school so much that once I knew I graduated, I didn't want to attend another school event. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to take part in anything school related, so I just didn't want to go. And my parents really wanted to experience it, so I kind of feel bad about that at times. So this is similar in the sense that whenever I've talked to my parents about this topic in the past, they did mention how like they would like a ceremony and maybe they would be the ones to help me pay for it, but I just don't like the idea of them spending so much money on that, because I feel like even a cheap wedding is still really fucking expensive. It's thousands of dollars, and it's thousands of dollars that I could definitely live without because I'm not someone that likes attention. So if I'm standing there and everyone's focused on me and I'm wearing some fucking dress and I'm wearing makeup and my hair is all made up and everyone's just like there for me, I just don't like that. Plus, I wouldn't really have many people to invite anyways. Like, that's not something that I'm concerned about. But I feel like you just spend so much money on silly things like flowers, table arrangements, location, food, I don't know, just like stuff that I feel like that money can be put to so much better use. I've heard somewhere recently that the average wedding maybe is $30,000. I feel like for some people, they think that that is a reasonable expense for a life experience like that or something. Oh, you only have it once. But for a lot of these people, they don't get married once. They kind of get married multiple times. I don't know. It's just like, I wouldn't want my parents to spend that money on me because I'm not willing to spend it. Yeah, I would feel a little bit bad if I didn't have one because they would want to see that and experience it with me. So maybe I would consider something small, like ultra small ceremony, where it's just literally everyone I care about, which is probably less than 10 people in the world, and then hopefully whoever I'm getting married to would have a similar small party that they can invite and just keep it private. I think it would bother me a lot if I invited acquaintances to my wedding because they're not at the level that I care about them enough for them to be there. And I feel like a lot of people often invite acquaintances to their wedding. It matters to me a lot that everybody present is someone I really care about. So I wouldn't really want acquaintances to be there. I guess we can move on to kids now, because I feel like I have literally nothing else to say about marriage. But kids is, I feel like I've been on the fence about kids since I was 22. It was something that I thought about first when I was working at my first job because I had a coworker there that I was talking to pretty frequently. And this was a topic we talked about once in a while. And I feel like at that age, I was still feeling a bit of pressure that having kids was expected. So when I started exploring the idea of making that choice for myself, whether I wanted to or not, definitely opened my eyes because I don't think kids was ever something that, kids was kind of like marriage. I never thought about it much, but basically currently I feel pretty confident in saying that I wouldn't want kids because they're a lot of time and money, a lot of both of those. And I don't really feel like I would be happy spending, 80 to 90% of my day focused on my kid and not being able to do my hobbies, because sometimes you see like moms dedicating their entire day to their kids, and I mean that's admirable and everything, but I don't think I would like that. I would really, really need my partner to be very active in parenting too, because when I see it being super lopsided, I just don't like that at all. I also definitely recognize that other people have different expectations out of their relationships and how they plan to parent. So if somebody doesn't mind, being the main person to raise their kid while their father doesn't do anything, then that's kind of all right for them, but I would really dislike that. So regardless though, I feel like that scenario probably is something I should think about less because I just don't really see myself wanting to. I really feel like it was similar to the beginning of when I had Riley when she was a puppy. And I know that maybe some people don't like the comparison of babies with puppies because puppies are obviously less time than a child, but it just felt similar in the sense that when she was very young, I had to constantly watch her. So that made it very limiting in what I could do, or like how long I could be out or when I could go out and stuff like that. And maybe the 1 or 2 months where my routine was basically revolving around her, I wasn't really a fan of it. So for a kid, I feel like that time period lasts years. I know you raise them for 18 years, but I feel like during that time, it's just a lot to deal with. And I'm also not patient. I don't feel like I would be good at tolerating kids when they're throwing tantrums. Even when I watch movies now, when I see a teenager being a bratty little shit, I would not be the understanding parent. They're not very mature and experienced in life, so they might be giving you an attitude because their friend is mad at them, and I would not be happy about being on the receiving end of that negative energy just because of some petty teenager shit. So I don't think I would be the most understanding parent. I also kind of realized once I got Riley that I am definitely a tiger mom in a way that I was hoping I wouldn't be, but it would just be weird and difficult for me to be like super lax in my expectations of my dog, let alone my kid. I'm really just looking forward to dedicating all of my time to myself. I have mentioned many times that I accept that I'm a selfish person, but when I was growing up, I feel like my mom used that term a lot in a negative way, and I do agree that that term can be viewed negatively very often, but I feel like whenever I use it, I would hope that it's in a way that shows like self-growth or just wanting to do things that I'm happy with. And I feel like if I spent all my days focusing on my kid and not doing anything for myself, that's just a lot to give up. And I don't think I'm willing to do that. And I don't think it would make me happy. Like, I'm sure eventually, once they grow up, and hopefully they're people that you like, because I feel like if it does get to that point, then yeah, it would be really cool to like have a daughter you get along with very well, or a son, or any of that. And that connection of family is nice, but getting to that point is tough. And yeah, you know, it's a lot of sacrifice. For now, I would like to think I am leaning very strongly towards never wanting kids. I have always tried to be not too definitive on that though, because you just never know. If I met someone that was incredible and amazing and influenced me in such a positive way that I would somehow be so willing to have kids with them, then sure, maybe that will happen later on. But unless I meet that incredible someone that would make me want to have his kids, then I don't really see myself really changing my mind. Another thing about kids that I might be a little bit worried about is if you need to do anything school related, or I think anytime that I've seen representation of this in a movie or a show where you have to go to the school to pick up your kid, or you have to interact with other parents during school events and stuff like that, I would really dislike that, because I feel like it would be similar to kind of how I handle situations now involving people, where I am willing to bet that 90% of the people that I would meet through these functions would not be people I'm interested in, and having to just entertain them and talk to them just because I'm there for my kid would annoy me. I don't like empty conversation, and almost always these scenarios put you in a situation where you kind of have to have an empty conversation with people just to be polite, just to play nice, just to play the game. Definitely wouldn't be happy about that. I guess there might be other ways around it that I can avoid it, but I just often feel like people are so judgy, where they think that if you don't want to socialize, that you're just some like angry hold up hermit and that you like something's wrong with you. I really hate that perception, because I feel like people tend to take it personally when it's really not meant to be personal. Some people just are not interested in socializing. There's nothing wrong with it. Don't force it on them. Just thinking about possibly having to deal with school stuff and like, I don't know, like can you imagine if your child got bullied and you had to go to the office and then you had to deal with the bully's parents that are most likely shitty human beings because they are not teaching their child properly not to bully other people. Like that stuff would just, I feel like, annoy the crap out of me because I don't want to have to contain certain things. Like if there's another parent that is really fucking awful, I would want to say that to them. I would want to let them know that I think their parenting is shit and that they really need to not be so neglectful. But that stuff you can't say to people, and that would just get you in more trouble if you're saying something truthful and honest. A lot of things. I just don't really know if I can be a part of those anymore. Marriage, possibly. Kids, hopefully not. And actually, even though I have 3 pets right now, I think that that's already too much. I would probably settle with 1 cat and 1 dog in the future. And honestly, even when Riley passes, I'm not positive if I would get another dog right away. I think I would just see what life is like without a dog for a short period of time and see if I like it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love having her around now, but I'm just kind of forgetting what it's like not having one. So maybe I would be able to travel a little bit more without additional planning with a dog. And maybe there's other stuff I can do for a short period of time before I decide on whether I want another dog. Alrighty, I think that's all I have on this topic. I feel like this topic probably has much more that could possibly be talked about, but I can't think of anything. So yeah, that's all I got. Sunday night though, so I'm going to wrap this up. Have a good night, everyone.